Welcome, everybody, to Mortgages with Millennials. As you can see, this might be the most stylish panel we've ever had, except for my hair. Bri, your hair looks great. My hair, I don't know about it. Very pleased. Let me just launch into intros. Very pleased this month to have Bri Lees and Leslie Colley from Depth and ladies. How are we doing today? Let's start there. How are we doing?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for a conversation about mortgage and millennials. I think there's so much to unpack here and to get to know everybody. I think it's going to be a good time, obviously, with people with great hair and amazing millennials.
Doing great. Thank you for having me. And really pleased that everybody's joining us when I know everyone's gearing up for Thanksgiving. Excited about that too.
Are you, I know you just got back from Japan and you're probably jet lagged. How much Thanksgiving meal prep stuff are you doing? How much responsibility do you have? Are you hosting?
It sort of snowballed. I'm not hosting. I was just going to do dessert, and then it became the turkey and the ham. So I have a lot going on unexpectedly. So yeah, pray for me.
Kristin, what are your Thanksgiving plans?
Oh, I just get to play with my nephew, really. I'm in Oklahoma City and my mom does all of the cooking and doesn't want anyone else helping. So she enjoys it. She just owns the kitchen. And so, yeah, I have a 4-year-old nephew who turns 4 today. So we're going to have a big birthday and he's cute. Very
cool. And Bri, what are you doing?
I mean, I'm having a pie off to see who makes the best pumpkin pie. Looking forward to that. I don't know if you're a pecan pie or pumpkin pie kind of person, but for me, pumpkin pie all day. And I think it'll be a great holiday with that. And I think my pie is going to win.
I like both pies, although you might be neglecting apple or like some other fall pies that are out there. But I believe in your pumpkin pie and Bri's pumpkin pie. We believe.
That means a lot.
Unsolicited here. I'll be going down to the Bay Area, to my sister's house. I also have a nephew who, Jackson, he's the smiliest little baby I've ever seen, Kristin. He's about 7 months. So I'll be playing with him and looking forward to it. And then I take a red eye to New York City Thursday night, and I'll be in New York for most of December. Always on the road. But let's launch into the show. I've been wanting to make this happen for a while, getting Leslie on, and Kristin have been talking about getting Bri on and just kind of the marketing around mortgage. And that can both be business to business or business to consumer. And each of you, Leslie and Bri, are respective experts in that. Kristin, can you add a little color here about why we're so excited?
Yeah, I mean, truly, like, I can't believe, I said this last time too, but I can't believe it's taken us this long to have both of you on. You both just embody the Mortgages with Millennials, brand and theme, and are both such experts in your field. And so I've known Leslie for a really long time, and she's always been just such a pro and expert when it comes to a lot of different things, but definitely when it comes to talking about the state of the millennial homebuyer. And Bri, just for me, kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh my gosh, where, I don't know how we didn't connect. And then I follow all her stuff on LinkedIn. She's extremely talented, brilliant around this topic of reaching the next generation, especially from the marketing angle. So yeah, this is going to be a great show.
Cool. Yeah, and I've been told that Bri will explain to me what LinkedIn is at some point today. So we'll get there. But I want to start with both of your backgrounds. We'll go alphabetically here. So Bri first and Leslie second. Kind of your path to where you are today. What drew you to this part of the business? What drew you to the mortgage industry in general, and what you love so much about what you do?
I mean, I didn't get into mortgage marketing because I was obsessed with mortgage by any means. I got into it because I think the industry was just running on vibes and duct tape and assumptions when it comes to marketing. And marketing a lot of times has a tendency to be treated like the arts and crafts department instead of a growth system. And so for me, once I saw that, I just literally could not unsee it. And what energizes me right now is helping companies build the architecture that they think they might already have, the ecosystem of marketing, the brand, the demand, recruiting, advisor enablement, executive visibility. It's all connected, it's all consistent, and it's all grounded in how people actually make decisions. And how they made decisions a year ago is completely different than how they make them now. And the average buyer's been online for 2 decades. So it's time for us to kind of shake things up. And that, for me, shaking things up is what energizes me.
Leslie?
I love that. So for anyone who doesn't know, Depth is a B2B PR and content marketing agency, and we work almost exclusively with mortgage tech companies. So practically speaking, that means like if you're a lender listening, there's a good chance at least a couple of our clients are in your current tech stack. And so my role sits at the intersection of strategy and storytelling. So I help shape PR, reputation building, and content strategy for these brands that I work with. And I lead a team of writers that execute that work. And like Bri, I did not set out to work in mortgage tech. Like a lot of people, I came into this field by accident. So earlier in my career, I've always been like a word nerd. So earlier in my career, I did internal comms for companies like Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Delta. And along the way, I met Carrie Milam, who founded Depth, and she became a mentor for me. And after several years of collaborating, I joined full-time. That was more than a decade ago. But what keeps me here is this love for the industry that kind of snuck up on me. In fact, I was kind of in denial for a while, like, oh, this is just a pit stop in my career, is what I thought for a while. But fast forward more than a decade later, and I feel differently. You know, you come to really realize that mortgage is such an important engine of our economy and something that touches every household, including my own. And all the people in this industry are, I mean, I've met some of the most, like the hardest working, most mission-driven people from this industry. So that energizes me, getting to collaborate with these people every week and helping shape how their ideas go to market.
And I can vouch that you're a word nerd because you and I have gone back and forth over the use of an Oxford comma in a press release. So we're both into that. That's cool to hear. Bri, I want to kind of loop back to something you said, though, about the changing landscape out there right now. And obviously people have been online for a long time. Let's talk mindset of the modern borrower, especially younger buyers, or borrowers, potential borrowers, millennial borrowers. Yeah. How should the way that they want to be messaged, work with, kind of change the way mortgage companies think about their own messaging, branding, and trust building, which is something that Kristin's really talked about a lot on this show. And Leslie, based on what Bri says, kind of how should companies best position themselves when it's business to business rather than business to consumer? So Bri, kind of business to consumer first, and then Leslie, business to business second.
Yeah, I mean, so I think messaging has to be really grounded in how people actually learn, not how the industry wishes they learned, which is like really clear, direct, human, authentic, like across the entire ecosystem. And if your brand says one thing, your advisor says another, and your buyer's reality says a third, you really don't have a messaging problem. You have a truth problem. And I think at the end of the day, borrower behavior is just like one piece of it, right? And most companies are still communicating like they control the information. And instead of preaching that information and saying this is what's happening and this is what a DTI is, like they're on Reddit, they're on ChatGPT, that's how they're getting information. And so when they come to you for that information, they don't need somebody to tell them. They need somebody to help them interpret what they already know or what they already learned. And so I think that's like the biggest shift that I'm seeing in terms of how companies communicate as well as, you know, the advisor communicates. I don't know, Leslie, what's your perspective on the B2B side?
Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Leslie.
Sorry. So I'd say a lot of the same shifts that you're seeing on the consumer side are happening in the lending workforce. And I think that's a lot of what we're focused on, because these are the operational teams and the analysts and the executives who are making technology buying decisions. And that's who we're kind of speaking to day to day. So even though they're trailing, right, like the average age of a loan officer is still around 50 or older, but it's trending down. It's going to catch up to the borrower demographic eventually. So we are increasingly seeing millennial and Gen Z decision makers, and they expect that same like clarity and transparency and authenticity from vendors that they expect from brands in their personal lives too. So we're seeing a lot of the same. And we just, you know, keep in mind that like we try to think about the modern mortgage consumer and just translating it to, you know, the millennial product manager or a tech forward LO, because we all know that in this industry, loan officers may not be the purchase decision makers for tech, but they are big influencers in the tech purchase decision, and they have a lot of sway. So as that workforce trends younger, we need to think about the same shifts.
So some of the research, a big theme of the next gen homebuyer research that I've done through the years has been this level of distrust. And I've surveyed over 9,000 millennial and Gen Z, and consistently we've seen that at least 2 in 3 say they don't trust loan officers to help them make smart decisions about their mortgage. And I think this is built this year, by the way, that jumped to 4 in 5. But so to build on what you're talking about here, I think you've answered some of this, but you know, what do we need to do in today's environment where people are following influencers, going to Reddit, they're finding information, AI, all of that. But what is the role of the loan officer here, and what is working to build trust? And Bri, let's start with you, but Leslie, I know you see from a lot of different companies' perspectives what's working around trust building.
Yeah, I mean, content that sounds like a person, not a company. The moment something sounds super sanitized, people scroll past it. So content that shows like how you think, not just what you do. Like, people want the real deal. They don't want the perfectly curated and the perfected content. So content that, really like explains the part of the process that nobody else explains, like the messy parts, the sexy parts, the real parts of it. Like, that's the conversation that buyers actually want to have at 11 p.m. And that's why they're going to Reddit threads. And the thing that, makes a difference is that it feels lived and it's not scripted, right? Like, if your content could be swapped with any other company out there or any other mortgage advisor and no one would notice, like, it's already dead. You have a problem, right? And so from my perspective, I think it's really all about, it's not so much about format, but like your level of credibility, and content performs really well when people believe you. If they don't, they're going to scroll right past it. That's why we don't see huge ad performances unless it feels like UGC content, right? So it's all about, making things consistently work that isn't flashy, but is really you and makes someone think like, oh, dang, finally, someone who is actually saying how it is, not the scripted version of what they think I want to hear.
Yeah. And on the tech side, I would say that lenders aren't just looking to buy products, they're looking to buy partners, and so what I'm seeing is, there is obviously a need in, marketing technology to explain features, but for years, marketers have been talking about get away from features and talk about benefits. I would say go a step further and talk about partnership and how you build a relationship. So I think that people are less interested in hearing about how your technology works and hearing about how you're going to put your shoulder to the wheel and continue working with a client after the sale and make sure that lender, gets the adoption and gets the ROI that they were expecting, and like real stories about how you partner. And that is something that really resonates. We're also seeing a big shift toward brevity in a lot of the content types. So like on the PR side, when I started working in mortgage, a lot of the editors were looking for these 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 word feature articles. Nobody wants that anymore. Editors aren't wanting that anymore either. It's 600, 700, 800 word articles, maybe even 150 word installments that can drip out in newsletters in several, installments. So I think the appetite for content has gotten a lot shorter. That's another thing that we're seeing. But of course, there's exceptions. I'm sure I'm not the only one who has been scrolling through their social feed and suddenly got sucked into like an 18-minute video. So it's almost like the extremes. You really want something short and concise that gets the message across. Or if something is really telling a compelling story, people will hang with you and go super long.
I thought you were going to say got sucked into an AI video. I got so mad whenever I found out that those raccoons jumping on the trampoline were from AI. I was like, how did you fool me? I follow a lot of raccoon content. It was so disappointing. So anyway,
you're like,
yeah, it's just that you think about the world that we're in now. It's not leading towards us trusting content or trusting people. So to that point of authenticity. It's just crucial.
Now, you could argue that the launch of Sora 2 was the end of definitive reality, because now the videos are so good, who knows? And so it plays exactly into that trust thing. Can we, I want to make this a little practical, though. Can we talk content types? And Bri, you started into this a little bit. Leslie, I liked your answer with the brevity. That's certainly a good point too. But there's educational videos, there's social reels, there's testimonials, there's long form explainers. Kristin and I have talked on this show before about, should you be on YouTube versus Facebook versus.
Is he frozen for you guys?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I was like, I'm not.
Oh no! There's all these different forms, kind of different types of videos. People finding the niche.
I've lost him again.
Me
Oh,
too.
no.
Okay.
You got the gist of the question. I think you got the gist of it, right?
The gist of the question is content types. That's what I picked up. Am I
Content
picking up
types are finding yourself, finding your own voice,
with AI specifically?
whatever you like, finding what works for you.
I mean, I feel like there's people who are going to tell you you have to record 3 videos a week and post 10 times a day in order to have any success. And I don't think that those like guardrails need to be so rigid. I feel like it's about figuring out a flow that really works for you and like what you can commit to long term. And on my side, like AI isn't writing content for me. Like it's helping me think clearer. And I use it the same way that I'd use like a really sharp strategist, like who doesn't get tired. Like it helps me test arguments and clarify language and like pressure check things. And so when I think of content, I'm like, okay, I know my content buckets, I know my topics, but like I'm stuck, right? And it doesn't think for me, but it helps me like flush it out like a strategist would. And so I think that's the biggest way that like I'm using AI right now, and thinking about my content is really what's going to work and resonate today. That turns my thinking into something that's usable or beneficial for my audience too. Because if it's not beneficial, they're just going to scroll right past it. You don't have to reinvent the content wheel, right? You just have to reinvent what the schedule looks like for you.
Yeah. I would say, to add to that a little bit, as far as like types of content, I agree with Bri. There is no magic formula, but I think that I can tell you that as far as if you have a goal, if anyone listening to this is saying, how do I get more visibility? How can I get there? How do I get quoted in the mortgage industry media? How do I have reporters calling me, asking me for input? People are looking for content that is rich in data and rich in opinion. And so those are things that I'm seeing. And they're looking for people who really have something unique to say. And I don't mean to imply that what you should do is come up with a contrarian opinion for everything that's happening in the industry. But what I mean is, if you in the line of your work are reading about an industry trend and you say to yourself, well, that's not how I view it, or that's not what our data is showing at our shop, that is the perfect moment to, write something and talk about it on LinkedIn or get in touch with a reporter, because we're looking for people who have a point of view and something to say.
I'm curious your thoughts on being everywhere. So I've struggled with this personally, of knowing I've been trying to get really, really clear on, where we're scaling with First Home IQ and just doing what is best for us. And then the same thing personally. And I was thinking I should be on YouTube. I should be, doing on every channel, but right now I'm just on LinkedIn. And I'm wondering if you guys have thoughts on just doing what you're really good and maybe passionate about, versus being everywhere, or if it is really important just to try to slice up what you got and get it on all the channels, because you're going to reach more people that way.
Ooh, okay. Well, from my perspective, I would say like if you're a company, it's important to have a content flywheel where your content is being in all the places. But when you're an individual person, you can only do so much. And if you don't have the resources, you really have to figure out what's the biggest bang for your buck. Like for me, I'm not on any other social media platforms. I'm only on LinkedIn. I have like a burner account on Instagram that I like literally just like, it's a burner account, right? And same with TikTok, but I'm not posting there. And I watch.
You're just scrolling with your burner account. Yeah.
Yeah. Just casually like creeping on Robbie's Instagram and Kristin and whoever, right? But for me, like my audience is on LinkedIn, and I know that I'm really great in that space, and it allows me to channel my energy into one thing instead of feeling like all over the place and scattered. Like it's a bandwidth challenge, right? But if I had all the resources, I'd be like, buckle up, let's go, let's be all the places and all the things. But I think there's so much return on value when it comes to LinkedIn. And I challenged myself with when I had clients, I was like, okay, I tell everybody to be on LinkedIn. I'm not doing it. I'm going to do the thing. And in 8 weeks, I was offered podcast opportunity and speaking opportunities, and MBA annual sent me there. And all of these things just came from sharing my voice on LinkedIn and going really deep with it instead of wide. So I always look at it from the perspective of like, am I going to dig deep into one thing, or am I going to dig wide into a bunch of different things? And so again, it goes back to bandwidth and kind of where you want to dig. But for me, digging deep on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I will say, does anyone here watch Subway Takes? Does anyone know about that? Okay, so this is my Breeze card. This is what we have here in Atlanta. I'm going to say 100% agree. And so I do believe that there is like, there's nothing wrong with showing up, like finding a lane that you want to be known for and showing up consistently in that lane. I think you have to be flexible enough to say yes to opportunities when they arise that maybe aren't in your lane, but I don't think you need to be everywhere or chase every trend. And in fact, I think part of curating a reputation as a thought leader is becoming known for some, a thing or 2 or 3 things that you're really knowledgeable about and really good at speaking to. And then people will start to associate you with that area of expertise and invite you to speak on it and want your insights and your input. So 100% agree.
Leslie, is there, people think they know what consumers want, but when it comes to convincing businesses to partner together, can you talk a little more about what's successful on that side of things?
Yeah, it's a few things. I think it's just a truth of this industry that there is a lot of FOMO and keeping up with the Joneses. I think everybody is watching what everybody else is doing. So I don't think that social credibility and customer stories are ever going to go out of style in this industry. I think maybe the shape they take, the voice that they're in to make sure that that authenticity is coming across, or maybe the length of them is going to change. But I really don't think that customer stories are ever going to go out of style. And I think that's one of the biggest things that people look for as they want to partner with providers that can point to really great stories with other lenders. And data is another thing that has become a huge differentiator. Not just, I have some clients that are what you could call true data companies, but I don't even just mean them. Every one of the companies I work with has huge amounts of volume running through their system. So even if they're not a data company per se, they can pull a lot of data insights, benchmarking trends from what they're doing. And we're seeing that, that's a layer of value they can add. So if your partner can not just fulfill a role in your tech stack, but also help you understand how you're performing relative to others in the market, or what you could adjust to see better results, I think that's bringing a lot of value. So those are stories that we're helping our clients tell as well.
And I also, as a follow-up to that, Bri, you mentioned AI, using it as kind of this helper. Where do you draw the line about how much you'll let it do for you versus where
I see where he's going with this time. I got the question.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you next anyway. I didn't know if you had a follow-up to where we were before, but just to continue expanding on that, I think you were talking about how it can feel like you don't let AI write for you. And I agree with you. We've talked about that. It feels like you see the same thing or the same way of writing over and over. And I don't blame people for doing that at all, but I am curious your thoughts on not only your own process, but given that you are a good writer, what would you suggest for people to feel like they can, people who aren't good writers and know that they're not and aren't maybe the best at creating, but can use AI and still maintain their own voice and their own authenticity? So anyway, continue.
Yeah, okay, listen, look, if you are handing over your content fully over to AI and you haven't trained it on what your voice is, what your stance is, who you are, what you stand for, what hill you're going to die on, the output is going to look exactly the same as 1,000 other people. And what have you done? You've commoditized your voice in a space that it already is commoditized, right? Like every lender is exactly the same. They all pretty much have the same offering. Every mortgage advisor had the same exact offering. We're all doing the same exact thing. What makes us different is what our voice is and what we stand for and what hill we're going to die on. And so the number one thing I would say is like, you have to be clear on that. Like you need to have a point of view and a pulse. AI doesn't have a pulse for you, right? Like pick a stance, don't pick a slogan, and something directionally true that is like how you approach the work, and tell one real story a week. And don't be super polished about it, you know, show your thinking. And once you train AI on who you are and what your voice is and what you stand for and like how you speak, for me, I want anybody to see my post and be like, before they see the picture, before they see who posted it, know that that was me, because they can identify what my voice is and what I stand for before anything else. And so if you can do that, that's when you're sitting in a really strong spot. Otherwise, you're handing over your brain to AI. And the most expensive thing in marketing is being forgettable. And the last thing you want to do is be forgettable in a space where everybody's exactly the same offer. So that's my perspective on it, is like, show your thinking and who you are.
Bri, can you share what hill you're willing to die on? What you stand for?
Yeah, the hill I'm willing to die on is that mortgage marketing is stuck in 2008. I think that we are stuck in an ecosystem and we create content for each other. If you're a mortgage advisor and you look at who's engaging with your content, 9 times out of 10, it is other mortgage advisors or other people in the space. It's not the buyer. It's not your partner. It's our own ecosystem where we're creating content for each other, and we're stuck in this echo chamber that we can't get out of because we haven't seen it any other way. You know, when you're posting like, what does DTI mean? What is a 50-year mortgage? Like, you can get that information anywhere. Like, the hill I'll die on is that you need to be different from anybody else. And we need to step out of being stuck in 2008 and actually create content that's valuable, and is meeting the buyer, the partner, everybody with how they consume content. And graphics on Canva, like, that's not going to do it. Don't waste your time on that. Create the authentic content that feels real. Pull your phone out. You don't need a microphone. Like, just be who you are and pretend you're FaceTiming. Like, just be honest, right? That's the hill I'll die on.
Wow, that was so good. I love that.
I'm like, let's go. I'll talk about this.
You were ready. I want to make sure we get a clip of that. I love that idea of pretending you're FaceTiming. Like, that helps me just imagine, you know, what am I doing here? And when I'm writing, I'm trying to write for an individual. Like, you got to think about who is the individual you're talking to, but thinking about it in terms of FaceTiming is a really cool way of approaching that. So, I mean, I want to pass it over to you, Leslie, and maybe, you know, not ask what hill you're willing to die on, but what is it that you get really passionate about, that, you know, what is the mortgage industry behind on when it comes to your area of expertise?
Well, Robbie knows I get fired up about Oxford commas. No, I would say if you want to be given a platform, and you know, a lot of times when I am talking to, you know, prospective clients, they're kind of going like, how do you make me a rock star? I want to be visible. I want to be out there. If you want to be given a platform, you have to be willing to say something. You have to have something to say. And, you know, I understand, like, I work with companies from scrappy startups to, you know, publicly traded companies. And you do reach a certain size where you have shareholders and investment boards that you're beholden to. And it tends to make people, they get into this bunker mentality and they get very cautious. But I think that hill I would die on is saying you have to push past that, because it's really going to be ultimately better for your business. And that includes your shareholders and your board and everybody else. If you aren't lost in the shuffle, you're not forgettable, just like Bri said. And that means having something to say and finding a way to, you know, push back this like inclination to be canned and to play it safe and to just lean into corporate speak and what everyone else is saying. So, you know, if you've built a business and you have an offering, chances are you have opinions about, this industry and how it works and how lenders could do things better. And, let's find a way to share those with the world.
I love that. And I have, so the webinar I was on right before this was the 10X Tuesday call with Dave Savage. And we were talking about building a personal code. And so I went through this process about 6 months ago of identifying what are the codes that I live by. And I looked at what are the books I love, what are the movies I love, and asking myself why. And I wrote out, I think 35 different principles that are really, really important to me and kind of dictate my life. And that led into my business planning from there and vision casting and all of that. But it's interesting because I was just thinking, putting that even into AI and saying, let's talk about if you want to talk about the 50-year mortgage, you say, okay, according to my code, what are some interesting takes that I might have, or what are, whatever topic you want to throw in there. If you have a code or at least a brand book, something that says to AI, here's who I am, it can give you some ideas on something to say. Because I think a lot of people get they know, but they need some brainstorming. To Bri's point earlier, that you've got a really strategic partner here that can help with not giving you your voice, but reflecting some ideas for you to curate your voice. So I would love to, we're getting to the last 10 minutes of the call. I want to hear a little bit about where you think we're headed. We've got a really, I think, a lot to overcome in the age of AI. And we've talked a little bit about that. And I feel like we all know that we're behind in a lot of ways, but what excites you about where we are? What excites you about, what you're seeing happening in the industry? Either one of you can chime in.
Wait, I want to answer this.
Oh yeah, please, Robbie.
I'm going to go camera off for bandwidth purposes. Hopefully that
Okay.
helps. Okay. So there's a really
Oh no.
Robbie!
We lost you and we want to know.
Oh no. Okay, wait, let me try it again. There's an interesting article I read in the New Yorker about AI music generation. Okay. And it talked about how the soul has been lost from music with AI taking over and people creating stuff with AI. And I like that we're at the point where people now have this kind of BS monitor or detector of that's AI. I don't you never wrote with M dashes before. Leslie was writing with M dashes since the 90s. The other people weren't. Now they are. I can tell this is generated. And so there's healthy skepticism now that abounds. And I really like that versus before it was AI's propensity to hallucinate was massive, but people trusted it more. Now it's getting better and people are almost trusting it less. And I like that that's the trend that we're moving towards. Leslie, does that kind of resonate with you and what you're seeing out there?
Yeah, I think I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a concern that AI could dull thinking. I don't think it's inevitable. It's not like a doomsaying kind of viewpoint, but as a writer and as a person, every single person on my team is a writer. That's what we hire for first. And so, of course, we're using AI in various ways to do certain parts of our work more efficiently, but I don't want to see it dull, our sharpness as writers and what makes us valuable either. And I also agree that people are becoming savvier. Bri and I were actually talking about this on the phone just the other day. It's been a very rapid evolution from, just taking AI content at face value to people have very quickly become aware of what to look for and cognizant of this person didn't even write this thing. This is all AI and not them. And so I do see that as a positive. You said you're kind of excited to see people be a little more discerning. But I do think that there is going to be room for AI. I think certain use cases are going to rise to the top. I think I'm excited about, I mentioned that I feel like the inside the mortgage shop, it's still trending older than the main home buying cohort, but as time goes on, our industry is going to get younger because it's going to have to. People are going to need to retire. And I think that's exciting because, there's this whole generation of loan officers that like learned their craft over 10, 20, 30 years, and they have encyclopedic knowledge of loan guidelines and everything else. And I don't think the next generation of loan officers is going to wait 30 years to acquire that knowledge. They're going to learn things in totally different ways, and they are going to lean on things like AI to answer questions they have about guidelines. But I don't think the role is going to go away. I think the need for like that human, like Bri said, it's not exactly educating. It's like explaining and analyzing and breaking down what things really mean for people. I don't think that's going to go away, but I'm excited to see how it's going to change.
I think to your point too, it's like, okay, let's see who really has a point of view and who's just been hiding behind their production in AI. You know what I mean? Now that we have like these bullshit detectors of being able to tell what's AI and what's not. And the version of the industry that we're stepping into that I'm excited about is the one that I've wanted this entire time, which is like more honesty, more intelligent, more human, and more impossible to just be fake. You know, I think for years, mortgage was really held together. Mortgage marketing anyway was held together by templates and one-off campaigns and whatever the loudest person in the room thought every buyer cares about. And then AI, like the new buyer behavior and content transparency came in and basically said, okay, well, you know, like I said, like, let's figure out who really has a point of view here. And so what excites me is like this next era of the industry is going to reward the people who can think, not just the people who can post. And it's going to reward companies with real alignment and real voices, and advisors who understand their consumers and executives who are willing to be visible, you know, and AI is part of that in the best way possible. It's not a shortcut, but it's like a clarity engine. And I think the version of the industry we're stepping into is what's next. It's the gap between the companies who get it and the ones who don't, and it's about to become really impossible to hide.
Yeah, I feel like what excites me right now is around the way that we are able to like the authenticity stuff that you've been talking about, but also that we're able to curate and build things that align with individuals. Like we no longer have to create the one size fits all, and there's room for people to be expressive of their like with First Home IQ, we're creating all of our content in a way that aligns with different people's personalities. Like it's like, for me, I am not the analytical person. I am, going to need to consume financial information in a different way. And I think we're bringing more understanding around that. And also with AI, like there's going to be the people that just use it to be a little lazy. And there's the people that are going to use it to actually learn better. I mean, I use Notebook LM all the time to better understand things and to, have communication, like build my communication understanding before going out and communicating. And I think there is like a divide that probably is happening, but and that doesn't excite me. But the fact that this other part exists, that we're kind of leveling up as an industry potentially, is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Robbie, any last words as we're closing out? This has been such an amazing conversation, and I know I would love to just continue chatting with you guys a lot longer, but and Robbie, you may be frozen actually.
Oh no.
I think he's frozen. Well, I know he texted me like, I don't know what's
my internet stinks. Shout out to Elon Musk and Starlink out here in the middle of nowhere. I'm so sorry, y'all. My media team's gonna love this for like all the clips they wanted to generate from the audio, but it's like, nope, I'm just frozen for half of it. That's good stuff. What did I miss?
Well, we got some fantastic clips from Bri and Leslie. So that is, it's been a great conversation. We've just been talking about, where we're headed as an industry. And I would just love to close as a reminder. We've talked a lot about trust. And I think that the biggest gap right now is not the lack of education. It's the lack of trust. And if you can find ways to create authenticity in your content and really build trust in your community by showing up as yourself, you're going to be set to better reach the millennials in your community. So any last thoughts from Bri or Leslie?
Can I ask one final question?
Yes.
Is that okay? So
I don't know if you're here.
I know. I'm so sorry. we had Sean Herrera on this show a while back, Kristin, and you love his content.
Yeah.
What he's there doing, he's kind of out in nature, doing cool things, talking about what he does. Bri and Leslie, any examples of accounts that you love that people can go check out and be like, you guys are like, I vouch for that account?
I can't say that there's really one account where I'm like, they're doing the thing. Like, I feel like everybody right now is trying to figure out how to do the thing, you know? So for me, like, I think look outside of the industry, find the content that resonates with you that isn't mortgage specific, and figure out why that works. Like, why do you want to consume that content so much, and see if you can do that for yourself. So I think it's less about the industry. It's more about what you actually resonate with.
I'll throw one out there. Well, obviously, I'm also watching a lot of stuff outside the industry, like my Subway takes reference. So, I pick up things that I like from outside. But I'll give a shout out to Wes Horbatek at Dark Matter Technologies. I think authenticity is not about perfection. It's about being willing to put yourself out there and make mistakes and be vulnerable. And he is killing it. And he's taking risks I don't think a lot of people would take. And I think people have so much more tolerance for like someone who's willing to just like take big swings. And maybe I think 90% of what he's doing is landing, and maybe 10% is a miss for somebody. And that is going to build authenticity way faster than somebody who's sending every social post through 9 layers of corporate approvals to make sure it's sanitized first. So shout out to Wes. I think he's killing it.
If only my ex-girlfriend felt the same way about authenticity, it would be fantastic. So that's good. Kristin, take us home.
I think I've already said my ending here, but I just encourage everybody, as you're thinking about the end of the year and going into Thanksgiving week, if you have some time, I would really encourage you guys to think about what does define you, what are what's your code, and as you build that, I think it's going to set a really great foundation for your 2026 planning and how you build content in a way that's really authentic to you. So thank you so much, Bri and Leslie, for being here, and Robbie. So appreciate you in and out. It's been a great show. So
thanks for having us.
Thank
Very
you.
much. We'll see you next month.
Bye.
bye.